Look, I don't claim, and I have to be very honest about this, I don't claim to be the most clued up person in the world when it comes to the energy sector. It's very complex and there's a lot of different elements to it. And so I'm really hoping you might be able to educate me on this. Break it down for people. Is this going to save us money?
I'm afraid it amounts to another political gesture. A lot of wishful thinking about the targets for massive targets now for nuclear and wind. And to be honest with you, to be frank, what has been announced will have no material improvement in the security of supply of power or heat to consumers and industry. And what it will do is increase the bills before any of this new electricity is ever generated. Consumers and industry will be paying massively, billions of pounds in bills and taxation to fund this new capacity. And the next 10, 20 years are critical. I was reassured by some mention about gas. We've had very little mention of the importance of gas in the transition to net zero.
Yeah.
Net zero target being 2050, which may...
Okay, all right. So just break this down then. So if this isn't going to work and it's going to cost us more money, why are we doing it? And also just break down exactly why it won't work. Okay.
They're doing it because they feel committed still. There is still a majority in Westminster who believe that the net zero target should remain and everything should be done to try and achieve it. Even though for technical reasons and for cost reasons, it may not be practical or viable. You asked me a question about what should we do instead? Yeah. That's
the thing. I want to know. Well, frankly, I'm not sure why we haven't just sacked off the whole what would we do? What would we do instead?
The why on nuclear is that there is no nuclear plant. I mean, Hinkley is the current new one. It won't be due out until 2026 and the cost of 23 billion. If you add up another half a dozen of those, they will be delayed and the cost is enormous. And on this time, rather than giving a price subsidy after the thing is built, the Chancellor has decided that we will actually contribute up to 20-25% of the actual cost, which is almost an open-ended commitment. And the other thing is on wind, the growth in wind target is extremely large. Most of it's going to be offshore. Turbines cost more money offshore. They're less reliable. They still have the problem of wind as intermittent. And there is a problem of transmission costs because most of the offshore installations are away from the centres of demand and require huge input into new investment in transmission, which is simply not there.
Okay, right. I mean, so it does just seem like yet another kind of, well, not even a sticking plaster, really. I suppose the wound is still gushing, isn't it? But Boris Johnson clearly doesn't seem like he's capable now anyway of being able to fix this particular issue. So realistically, people care about the pounds in their pocket. Can you see a situation where really people are essentially working just to pay their heating and just to pay their bills as opposed to actually having any kind of spare cash or knocking about whatsoever?
I think the first thing to say here is in the very short term, there's nothing we can do about mitigating the impact of increasing energy costs. But it's not to say that energy costs can't be mitigated in the future. And what we should be looking at is saying if gas is still going to be important, which it is in heat and power, what could we do to actually mitigate volatility in the next 10, 20 years in energy costs, and as well as underpinning security? And I think there is a case, and we didn't hear it today, for more gas generation, which could or could not have carbon capture and storage attached to it. We need more flexible peaking plant to actually adjust to the intermittency of wind and solar.
Okay, now, Clive, I hate to do this, but you've got to explain yourself, okay? You've recently been advising the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy. They've not done what you're suggesting. Why haven't they listened to you?
Well, it's interesting that you say that. Last week we had a conversation I shan't name who I spoke with.
Name him.
But we had a conversation, and the conversation was about what could we do to mitigate the possible impact of energy rationing in the next winter starting in October. And the answer is not a lot. And there are some things that can be done in terms of demand gas management and in terms of increasing storage, but no, you can't do that overnight. So there is not a lot we can do in the very, very short term. The other question they had was what could we do in the medium term to improve security? And the answer is more storage, more production of gas, probably more fracking to reduce import dependency.
Yes.
And in the next 10 these are the sorts of measures that we should be looking at at the same time as having maybe an increase in wind generation capacity. But I think the nuclear, whether it be large nuclear, whether it be small modular nuclear, is simply an uneconomic proposition.
Yeah, indeed. Well, look, Clive, I've enjoyed every moment of this. Thank you very much. Clive Moffat there, who, of course, has been recently advising the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy